Welcome back to another UNC Tar Heels football podcast here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you are watching us on our YouTube channel, that is called Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me is our staff writer, photographer, videographer, writer, travel companion. He has been at all three games, the practices, pressers, and everything, Mr. Brandon Peay. And Brandon, in the first of our two-part podcast bi-week series, we combed over the offense. Today, with this one, we're going to comb over the Tar Heels defense. The offense was kind of easy because by and large, offense has been pretty damn good. The defense has not. So we're going to hit on some of these numbers. A few I'm going to throw out to you right now, and I want to get your thoughts. They've allowing 37.7 points a game. They've given up 79 first downs. Now 34 rushing, 35 passing, which means 10 on penalties. Total offense, Carolina's allowing 468 yards a game. So your thoughts, what jumps out to you about the way the defense has played 3 games in?
Well, you know, AJ, when we were at ACC Media Day this offseason, I chose UNC to win the Coastal Division. And the reason I chose them to win the Coastal is because I had confidence that the defense would be able to carry the load while a young offense figured things out. That was my thought process going in at ACC Media Day.
You weren't alone, by the way. You weren't alone.
Huh?
You weren't alone in this sense. A lot of people kind of thought the defense would carry him. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of been the thought the past couple of years, if you think about it. But if you'd have told me that before the season that the offense would average over 50 points a game through the first 3 games, I probably would have had a hard time thinking of weaknesses for this team. However, the defense hasn't lived up to those expectations. But I do think there are some moments, but I'm not going to talk about those yet. I think first of all, I think they have to give up less catastrophic quarters. They have stretches where they look really, really good, and they have stretches where they look the complete opposite. They have to kind of reel that in and become a more consistent offense. And I think the coaching staff would agree with that. I haven't gotten a chance to go through the PFF number for defensive numbers over the Georgia State game yet. I usually do offense on Monday, defense on Tuesday. But from my vantage point, I will say this: I do think they missed less tackles against Georgia State than they have any other time. I haven't looked at it up.
They had 16 missed tackles at App State, 9 at Georgia State, and Georgia State only ran 8 fewer plays. So so that's an uptick. Okay,
so my eye test was okay. I personally don't remember seeing Cedric Gray miss a tackle, and I think he's one of the biggest perpetrators of missed tackles in the past. And personally, I'm under the belief football is such a simple offense and defense. It's so simple. It's the most strategized game, but it's so simple. I believe on defense, if the first guy who gets to the ball can make the tackle on a consistent basis, you're going to have a really good defense. And if that guy misses tackles, you're going to have your defense is not going to be nearly as good. And I think that's why coaches encourage more people getting hats to the ball, because if that first guy misses, the second guy's right there behind him.
If he slows him, if he misses, but slows him, then guys can gang up. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that was the biggest improvement I saw in this defense. Just more sure tackling against Georgia State. They obviously still have some coverage issues they need to work out, but we got to. I'm trying to find the positives here, because I think we
I don't think there are a lot of them, are there?
Huh?
There's probably not a whole lot of positives if you look at
there's not. I'm racking my brain. Here. That's one of the positives. But obviously they got to get more consistent. They have to continue to tackle the way they did against Georgia State, and they have to fix the issues in the secondary. The secondary has probably surprised me the most. I thought the secondary would be a major strength for this team this season, and through 3 games it just simply hasn't been. And Mac Brown has said multiple times that he needs the guys in the secondary to make plays on the ball, make plays while they're back there. And it just hasn't happened yet. And I think that might be the biggest issue with this defense. I would like to know your opinion about that.
Well, I'm going to defend Cedric a little bit.
Okay.
One of the reasons he has more missed tackles than other guys is because he gets to the ball more than other guys.
True.
So his missed tackle ratio may not be as high as other guys, but if he gets to the ball 15, 16, 17 times in the game, he gets 12 tackles, and has 2 or 3 missed tackles, that's going to happen. That's a better percentage than a guy who gets to the ball 5 times and has 2 missed tackles.
True.
So that's part, but I think Cedric will also be the first person to tell you that learning how to wrap up and bring guys to the ground has been a point of emphasis for him. I thought he was really good at that on Saturday. He's got 2 straight games of 14 tackles. So I thought the defense Saturday played more sideline to sideline than they had all year. Against App State, they did not look athletic. Against Georgia State, the defense looked a lot more athletic. Now, part of that is they played a different team. App is a more explosive team. They've got better offensive players than Georgia State does. But Carolina never looked sideline to sideline against App. And they never looked more athletic than App. They other than the third quarter, they looked more athletic than Georgia State, and they were more sideline to sideline. That's ultimately what they want to be. Now, your point about the catastrophic quarters is a great point, because if you want to parse, I think you have to begin with what kind of defense does a team have when in the fourth quarter App State, it gives up 40 points, 6 touchdowns, 40 points, 338 yards, 18 first downs. App ran 30 snaps in the quarter, and they had 6 touchdowns and 18 first downs. Okay. Now, some of those touchdowns were also first downs, because if it's more than 10 yards, once you get 10 yards downfield without a flag, you have picked up the first down. Okay. Still, 6 touchdowns, 18 first downs in a quarter. Outrageous. The third quarter at Georgia State was 21 points. It was 25 points.
It was 18 points, 18 to 7.
18 points, yeah, because they scored a touchdown. 18, because they ran off 25 consecutive points in the game. Yeah. 18 points, 205 yards, and 10 first downs. 10 first downs is way too much. 10 first downs in each quarter is 40 for a game. That would set a record against UNC. So they've had catastrophic quarters. The difference is they fixed themselves Saturday. They did 2 things Saturday that if you want to say, okay, if you're a Carolina fan and you want to feel optimistic about the defense, you have 2 things from Saturday to feel optimistic about. Number 1, 0 points and 58 yards, 3 first downs in the fourth quarter. All right. The other thing is the offense turned the ball over 3 times in the second half. And they had in the late half, they had the failed fourth down there in 39, 8-yard sack. Georgia State takes over at the Carolina 31. In those 4 scenarios, Georgia State scored 3 points. So the defense stood up the offense, backed them up when they had to. And in the fourth quarter, the defense shut down Georgia State, allowing the offense to win the game. So that is growth. No matter how you slice it, that's growth. There's still the club that struggled with a Florida A&M team that went down and scored 3 points against Jackson State. There's still the same team that got shredded by App State. There's still the same team that had trouble at times with Darren Granger. They did not protect the edge as well as they should, and they had a bad third quarter. There's still that team. But the last time they were on the field, they were throwing a shutout in the fourth quarter, allowing the offense to win a game. That's the group that's going into the bye week. That's the group that's saying, okay, we did positive things to help us win a game this week, and we're going to grow from this. I think that was a starting point in Atlanta. It was a weird game. You were on the field. It was the most bizarre atmosphere I've experienced at a college football game in my life. There were 1,000 reasons to suggest why that team would not have tremendous motivation, but they did, and they stepped forward. I think we could look back at September 10th in what used to be the Atlanta Braves baseball stadium and say, you know what, that may have been a turning point for this football team.
Yeah, so I think that even goes back further to the App State game. You know, they gave up so many points in the fourth quarter, but when they needed to get a stop on that 2-point conversion, they got to stop. And then in the fourth quarter against Georgia State, they didn't allow a point. They only allowed 58 yards, and it came in a quarter where the offense only scored 7 points, and they couldn't afford to allow any other points to be scored. So this defense hasn't been good, but when they needed to make plays in big time situations, so far it has. And I think that's another really big difference between this season and last season. We've seen last season the defense implode at the end of games and just actually lose the game. This defense did implode at the end of the App State game, but they were able to come together, get it back together, and they got to stop when they needed it. So I do think that is a positive. I'm really interested to see how this group looks after the bye week with the open week of practice. Mac Brown said they're not going to practice too much tackling, but they have 3 weeks of tape to evaluate. Logically you would expect them to be better, but we know there's
no guarantee.
Interesting how they come back against Notre Dame. I think they're going to be really fired up, and I think they have a chance to put together performance against Notre Dame. And if they put together a good performance against Notre Dame, I think the fan base will forgive what they've seen so far. I don't know what you think about
the young guys will hit during the bye week. The young guys will hit some. The other guys will not hit that much. A couple of numbers to throw out there. Third down conversion, opponents are at 36.7%. Not bad.
Say that again.
The opponents are at 36.7% third down conversion rate.
Yeah, not bad at all.
Opponents are 6 for 7 in the red zone. And here's a couple of numbers for some guys. Cedric Gray, 34 tackles. He's got 2 TFLs, 14 stops. Stops are something that's charted by PFF. A stop is a play that results in a failure for the opposing offense. His PFF grade through 3 games is 77.6, so he's playing well. Power Eccles, 26 tackles, 2 TFLs, a sack, 14 stops. Kamen Rucker, a 90.2 PFF. Played 115 snaps. He's got 3. PFF gives him 3 sacks and 3 hurries. Kamen Rucker is a playmaker. Kamen Rucker is consistent. He is fundamentally as sound as anybody they have on defense. I love watching him play, and he's earning himself more and more reps. I think he had 42 snaps against Georgia State. Who on the defensive front has played better than Kamen Rucker so far this year?
I mean, I think Noah Taylor has the only argument for it.
Well, and Noah Taylor is sort of, he's a mock lineman. I think Noah's played well. I think Noah's presence out there helps the defense. I think we're going to see Noah make big plays as the year goes on. I think Kamen Rucker's the guy that goes in that room and everybody looks around and says, we need to elevate to his level. We need to get his motor. We need to have his focus. We need to prepare like he does. We need to be as sound as he does. And he's a dude that plays quicker than he is, plays stronger and bigger than he is, because there's just a lot of this.
I have a question about.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
At the game Saturday, Kamen Rucker, he tackled the ball carrier behind the line of scrimmage, and he got credited with a tackle for a loss. But I thought if the ball carrier is the quarterback, is that not just a sack?
Well, if it's a design run, it's not a sack. PFF gave him a sack on that because it started as a pass play, and it wasn't a keeper. In my opinion, the quarterback took off because he saw immediate coverage. It was a quick hitting pass play, saw immediate coverage, and came and got him. The note I took during the game was that it was a sack, and PFF credited him for a sack on that play. So it's possible that the official stat keepers will go back and give him a sack at some point. That does happen. It was a heck of a play regardless. It was a very quick athletic play and also a strong play. The 4 defensive backs, starting DBs, and I'm not including DeAndre Boykins on this. I'm talking about the 2 corners and 2 safeties. The highest grade is 61.3. 3 of them are below 60. When we do our weekly reports, or inside the offense or inside the defense, we only note the grades for guys at 60.0 and above. So if someone's at 55.7, I don't put it down. So 3 of the starting DBs are below 60. One of them is at 61.3. DeAndre Boykins, who is the star, he's 64.4. He misses some plays, but he makes plays. For him, it's just a matter of continuing to get reps. Because I actually like his physicality. I think that he's a dude that loves football. There's a ferocity to him. If you could take more of what he's got that drives in, or what Power Eccles has that drives in, and Kamen Rucker, and infuse that into some other guys, I think the defense would be more consistently better. Because you mentioned the secondary, and these are 2 points I want to make here. You can comment on the first one, then the second one. You mentioned the secondary as well. And Max said after the game, when we asked him about what's up with bye week, what's the point of emphasis, the only specific football thing he said was improved communication in the secondary. That's it. He didn't talk about offensive line. We got to block better. We got to run better. We got to sharpen our skills. He said, we've got to figure out why the communication's bad back there. So that's from Mac's mouth. The communication is a problem. It may not be the physical attributes of guys, because I think at times Cam Kelly is wow. And there are times you're like, whoa, yeah. He's kind of that guy. And, you know, there was miscommunication on the touchdown pass in the corner the other day. That was very clear. So they got to get that fixed. And if they do, then you allow dudes to stand out. You allow the natural talent to stand out a little bit more. Then the need is that they have to be consistent, which was a problem last year all along. So your thoughts on these two things. First, about if there was a little bit more Boykins, Eccles, and Rucker in the other guys. And the other side of that is the communication in the secondary.
All right. Well, first, the communication part is actually, I'm not going to say it's encouraging for me, but I think it's better for the mistakes to be caused because of lack of communication rather than lack of ability. Because you can fix the lack of communication. You can't go out and recruit guys in the middle of the season to fix lack of ability. Yeah. I think as this group experiences more different, as they experience more different route combinations, they're going to see more and more things. I think it's going to be less. They're going to get confused less often, because they're going to eventually, the things that they're seeing are going to start to repeat themselves, and they're going to say, oh yeah, last time I did this and it was wrong, so let me do this. So I think as they get more and more experience, I do believe the communication will improve itself. And I think as they play more teams in conference that they're more familiar with, I think that'll also be good for the group. And what was the other part of the question?
What about the physicality? I really like the edge that Boykins, Rucker, and Eccles play with, and I think Cedric does too. And I'm not saying other guys don't. I just think that it stands out more with those guys. So if they can infuse some of that into everybody across the board on defense, and trust me, I'm not singling out anybody saying that they don't have the edge. I just think that the edge in those guys stands out more. If they can infuse that across the board, I think this would be a better unit as well.
Yeah, for sure. Those guys that you named particularly I agree, are the most physical, particularly Power Eccles. He is a missile. He doesn't stop until he gets to the ball.
Heat-seeking missile. I think you broke up a little bit.
And he's really good at setting the edge because of that physicality. And I think he still needs to get on the field more. I don't think he's on the field enough. But yeah, I agree. If you could take the physicality from those people that you named defense, I think this defense will be special. If you could take out Kamen Rucker's brain and divide
special,
and give it,
define special.
Oh, what I'm saying is, if you could take
define special for that. Okay, no, you said it. So define special for this group. What does that mean to you?
Special is like, top one of the best in the country.
You think this defense could be one of the best in the country?
No, I'm saying if you gave everybody on the defense Kamen Rucker's mentality, I think they would be. That's what I'm trying to say.
I hear you. I'm not putting you on the spot. I want to make sure that fans understand the point you're making.
Yeah.
I think this defense could be much, much better than it's been.
For sure.
They have 21-4
expectation.
They have 21-4 and 5 stars in that side of the ball. Not all of them are playing. Now, Travis Shaw did play 17 snaps at Georgia State. I thought that was a positive. Travis Shaw occupies blockers. So if you're in an 11-on-11 situation and one of the 11 on the other side is a quarterback who's not going to block, and then you have a lineman who occupies 2 blockers, suddenly the other team has 9 guys to block 10 guys. Is that what it is? It's 9 guys to block 10 guys. So, and that means somebody's not going to get blocked.
They have
8 guys. 8 guys. So 8 guys to block 10 guys. So somebody's not going to get blocked. 2 people are not going to get blocked more than likely. So you allow people to make plays, and that's what's so important about up front. And with Travis occupying blockers, Reva Hasek often occupies multiple blockers. Sometimes Miles Murphy does. So a lot of people have been very critical of the defensive line. I'm not going to go there just yet. I just don't think, and this isn't close to a finished product, I don't think we've really seen what this group's going to be yet. And ultimately, it starts up front. So, yeah, there might be some communication problems in the secondary, but, if they get more pressure up front, then that changes things for the secondary. If Storm Duck, starts to find the guy that he was before the injury at Boston College 2 years ago, then suddenly Tony Grimes is a better corner, because one really good corner with a bad corner, the one really good corner really isn't utilized properly. The teams run away from it and everything else. If you have two really good corners, they make each other better, and they make the defense better. I think there's a long stretch of growth coming for this defense. And I think Saturday was a big part of it. Really, even App was.
I agree.
App was a wart fest. And, hey, when you got the warts, and you got to treat them, right? Well, they started treating them. And they showed some progress against Georgia State. But I'm not going to dump on the defensive line like a lot of people have. I still think there's a work in progress thing there. They do have different responsibilities than they did under Jay Bateman. It is a little bit different from just straight gap control to try to actually making plays. They've only blitzed 9 times. Gene's trying to get a conventional pass rush. I understand that. And you use the first 3 games that they won to work on getting conventional pass rush. Now they have a chance to fix some things this week. So I do think stuff needs fixing in every element of the defense. There's no doubt about it. But I also think we've seen some flare-ups in each element of the defense to think that, well, there is a chance. There's a chance this becomes an average defense, an average Power 5 defense. And that might be all they need to be. An average Power 5 defense that can get some turnovers. If they're an average Power 5 defense that can get some turnovers, that might be enough with this offense to win 9 games, maybe even 10. Who knows? Because they're undefeated. They're 3-0. It may be an ugly 3-0 to a lot of people, but that depends on how you look at it. If you're a straight defensive guy, you think, brutal. If you're a straight offensive guy, you're like, yeah, not bad. I'll take 51 points a game. I'll take 547 yards a game. I'll take Drake May. I'll take those receivers and maybe the best tight end group in the country. Sure, I'll be happy with that. What you need is for the defense to kind of catch up a little bit to the offense so you can beat the ACC teams when you're in shootouts and maybe limit some of the shootout aspect on the other side of the ball. That will be the mission. I think the potential is there for this group to get significantly better, but they need to quickly because it gets tough moving forward. It's all P5 the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm. I think you mentioned earlier that Georgia State could possibly be the turning point. Maybe one down the line, we might look back at the Georgia State game and say that was a turning point of the season. But I actually think if you go back to the App State game, I think that could possibly be the performance that kind of turned everything around, because in that game you saw the extremes on both ends. You saw a really good defense and then you saw a really good bad defense all in one game. So I think when you put that on film, you can show them, well, this is why you're really good and this is why you're really bad. I think that the more you see stuff like that, the players are like, oh, okay. And then I think that might be the key to them turning everything around this season.
Okay, you played football, Brandon.
Yeah.
All right, we both played football. And in all sports, you don't want to be embarrassed.
Yeah, never.
And a lot of times bottoming out is a great thing in anything, certainly in sports. Because okay, we could never go there again. Sometimes you have moments like that in life. Maybe it's a night you go out, you're like, I can't ever do that again.
Yeah, they can't do that again.
You can't do that. App State was that. Yeah. That was the bottom. I think the lesson learned is you can't ever do that again. Because they won the game, and they won. They scored 63 points at App State in the biggest game in school history. A week later, App State allows one offensive touchdown to Texas A&M, and no one's talking about that. All they're talking about is how horrible the defense was. Mm-hmm. The defense was embarrassed. They were humiliated. There was nothing that Mac or anybody else could do to try to steer the negative away from it, the narrative away from it. And Mac tried last week. Nobody wants to talk about the second and third quarter, because the fourth quarter was historically bad. We talk about history in this one, and it should never happen like that ever, but it did. So I think that was a beginning point, because they felt. I thought when we talked to the defensive guys last week that there was a different tone.
Yeah,
like Tony Grimes, there was a different tone. There wasn't the same And I think cockiness is a good thing, by the way, in athletes. They should be cocky. I've been around athletes my whole life.
There was
They
more
wouldn't say
humbleness in the
cocky. So it was
tone.
a little bit more humble, like, okay, well, we really got embarrassed. So when they were forced in a situation to have to step up, they did against Georgia State. I look at a football season, I've told you this before, I look at it as a book, and each game is a chapter. And we're still in chapter 3 because the bye week this week, I think, is still an addendum to what they've done the first 3 weeks because there's so much that needs fixing. It's not just take a break, rest and relax, have a couple light practices and move on. They're fixing some stuff. They have to. A lot of film. And I think 3 weeks in, the plot thickened, in my opinion, in Georgia State because the defense backed up the offense, or picked them up rather, after the turnovers, after the failed fourth down, and then shut them out in the fourth quarter. We thought the story was going one way. Now it's slightly shifted in a different direction. So it'll be very interesting to see where the story goes with the fourth chapter, that is Notre Dame. So you can at least think, all right, the defense isn't going to be an afterthought here. Maybe they're going to be a factor in the eventual outcome of this story. Yeah. That's what Georgia State told me.
Yeah, I agree. Same thing. They can get better, and eventually they can be yeah, I agree with you. I agree with that.
Everybody needs to remember, for just $8.33, you can be a Tar Heel insider too. Go over to our site, tarheelillustrated.com. Just $8.33 a month, guys. You have access to literally everything we do: football recruiting, basketball recruiting, football, basketball, coverage of the team. We go everywhere the Tar Heels go. We're on it constantly. We never rest. We never take time off. We rock every day of the year. He's Brandon. I'm AJ. We appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks.